Hey, welcome back to another Black City Coffee vlog. In this video, we're going to talk about 4 profiles, light, medium, dark, that I do currently. My style, okay? Doesn't have to be your style, but I want to share it because my friend keeps asking me, what do you do? And it's a repeat question, so I thought it might be helpful for others who are maybe curious. And a decaf, a medium decaf, and that's what I do, and that's all I do, okay? There may be some variants in there somewhere, but that's really all I do. And we're going to talk about crashing, flicking. These are rouse terms, but a little wiggly squiggly going on in the ROR curve after first crack. And why that happens is that really a problem? Okay, first and foremost. Why is it happening? Why it may be happening? Now, this is not me talking to you from a high horse, like I know everything and I can fix it and all that stuff. Nope. All right, I don't think you should approach any other roaster that way either, because we are not there. I am not there. We don't use the same machines. We don't don't have the same probes. We'll get into that, probes. We don't have the same like ambient temperature, elevation, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so in short, the variables are different. But we'll talk about it anyway because I think it helps to massage the psyche when we're driving ourselves crazy, trying to just roast the best coffee that we can. And, you know, we talked about the other article, like just trying to do a really good job with the green that we have. You know, we want to honor the cup, you know, that sort of thing, that sort of sanctity of the green. So I get that. All right, so let's talk about it. Let's go to my RoastPath, okay? I use RoastPath, and this is because I have a Mill City roaster, a 1 kg version 2019, and that means it is all manual control. There's no digital or automation, sadly. It also does not track my fuel input, which is hard when I want to share this with other people and to just show them what I'm doing, you know. And it doesn't track my fan. All right, so let's just go into the most recent one. So this will be a very templated idea of what I do for a medium roast. I'm not in no particular order, okay? You can write them all down. I'm just going to go based on what I have here. But this is typically what I do with some variance in between. So this charge, again, this is not correct, 375. This is most likely 360 Fahrenheit. Okay, so there's an offset, and I just haven't adjusted it. I don't care to. I don't need to. I write down my charge in my physical notes, and that works for me. Okay, turning point 113, 199. Now this is the third roast of the day. So the machine's running a little hotter. It's a little bit more consistent. About at the third roast, I'm a more consistent roaster. The machine's running hotter, not as erratic, and a little bit more truer to what this machine can do. All right. Green to yellow transition, 4 minutes 52. I think I marked to this late, honestly. I remember this pretty well. 306, yeah. These numbers will coincide most of the time, about 300, 301, like that. And this will be like 430, something like that, okay? First crack, 918, 384. Yeah. A little later, I think. I think I'm maybe like, you see this little dip here in the ROR. It's not like a perfectly, if we were to draw a line like straight from the peak to like down here, if we would take a ruler, you know, it's a little under that ruler. So, I don't know, a little inefficient with the heat, I'd say. Okay. That's typically the way I roast because I haven't figured out how to be incredibly efficient and also consistent yet. Okay. And then dropping at 1124, 406 on the drop. Okay. So basically this is my template. It's a very standard template. We're going like 4 minutes 30 on the dry or on the first phase, 4 minutes or something like that on the second phase, and then about 2 minutes on the last phase. And when I do that for this particular, this is a pre-blended, this is Tiger Claw, so it's my pre-blend omni-roast, quote unquote omni-roast. Like I'm saying, you can brew it any kind of way and it will still taste good. The flavors will be consistent for the most part throughout any kind of brew, except for maybe espresso. You get a little bit more acidity there, and I think it's balanced and sweet, and I like it. And yeah, so this is my medium omni-roast blend. This can differ in that it is a pre-blended green or a batch versus, say, like Mr. Koto, which is just a single origin. I'll still kind of roast it the same way. But the flavors obviously will be a little different because it's single origin versus this blend, in which I don't intend for you to take it to any type of brew method. Okay, so that's medium. That's a typical medium in my book. I'm hitting around these numbers. If I don't hit them exactly, I'm not freaking out. Why? Because it's not about roasting paint by numbers. It's not roast by numbers. Okay, if you're doing that, I think that's a good place to start when you're learning. But when you start to actually cup, you start to roast for the cup or roast for your customer, to be more precise. I think maybe that's what I think more people are interested in, that, you know, how do I make money? Or how do I learn to make money with my coffee, right? Roast coffee that people like or that your customers like. Okay, so that's medium. And I did like 3 batches of that. Okay, here's my light. Let's see what I did on the last one. I like to roast hot and fast. Okay. And this is a very typical light roast for me. Again, it's not roast by numbers, paint by numbers. It's what I've cupped and what I like to taste in this particular light roasted coffee. This is an anaerobic processed, natural processed coffee from Colombia. Yes. I forget. Costa Rica, sorry. Costa Rica, Santario Project, 3 Palms. Yes, I forget all these things. Natural processed. 350 to 360 charge. Yeah, kind of a low charge temp. I can play with that charge temp and still kind of get to the finish line in a similar way. There will be a difference in the cup. I think one. I would have to have another cupper on the cupping table with me, but I think there is a change, or there is a difference between a higher charge temp, still kind of like getting the same numbers, but if I started with a higher charge temp versus this lower charge temp, I'd say this is a low, 350 to 360. I'm in that range or something, and I have a range because you'll have your first roast out the gate, which the machine is cooler, so I think I'll charge a little higher to help it out. And then maybe by the third batch, I'm roasting a little, or I'm having a charge temp that's a little lower, like 350, because I don't need to help it out. You know what I'm saying? So you make those little decisions at the roaster to generally get where you want to be at the finish line. But yeah, so let's call it, this is the last one. Let's call it 350, the last batch of this light roasted coffee. Turning point, 120, 204. And you'll see this sort of like a little bit later turning point because you're charging lower, right? And then green to yellow, I like to hit my green to yellow transition on a light roast closer to 4 minutes or on the lower end of 4 minutes, not like 4 minutes 30 or later. I don't like when it does that. I don't like how it tastes. It tastes a little flatter than I would like. 303, first crack at 7:48. I don't mind this. This maybe looks early to some people. 377. The machine is hot at this point. I'm roasting hot and fast. You can probably, a seasoned cupper will probably taste this and say, hey, you're underdeveloping it. I get that, but I think it's okay. And then dropping at 914, yeah, 395. Yeah, I don't really want to get to the 400s on this coffee in particular. Like, it's so like subjective. I'm like, yeah, I think more people will like it sweeter. But if somebody specifically goes and orders 3 palms, and I kind of get the feeling that they want a light roast, and they want a true light roast, to me, not true. I'm using the wrong words. They want to roast a light roast from me and how I would roast it. They ordered from me, right? So I'm going to give them I'm going to give you what you want, right? Versus you go to big box store, mainstream store, you order a light roast, and they're definitely still going to give you, like, to me, taste more light medium than anything, or more often than not taste medium to me. Okay, but with me, you're going to get, if you ask for light, I'm going to give you a very light roast. Okay, that's light more often than not, especially with a natural processed coffee. With a wash processed coffee, I'm still going to be trying to accomplish the same goal, but I'll have my eye in the sight glass a little bit more in terms of like development, and I think I could take it to like the 400 degrees for sure for a washed processed coffee, just because it's washed, you know, and always backing it up with sensory data, I guess, from the cup, what I'm tasting in the cup, and I'm like, yeah, I need to develop it more, you know, and then taking that a little bit further in the roast versus say natural, because naturals just take on heat easier. So I feel like I can get away with being hot and fast and still tasting acidic and sweet and all the good stuff, and still tasting good. You know what I mean? All right. Decaf right here. This is what I do for decaf. And then we'll do dark after this. Decaf. This one is from Colombia. Yeah, decaf Colombia sugar cane. So the EA, we call it 99. It's always going to be a medium roast, always. And on the darker side of medium. So it's either going to be a medium or a darker medium. I'm not going to take it to dark, but I will take it to a darker medium. All right, 350 charge for this guy, decafs. Again, they are, the molecular structure of the green itself is just a lot more degraded, less material to work with. So it's going to take on heat very quickly. And you can definitely tip it easily. I've done that a ton. So here we go, charge 350. Turning point 123, 198. Green to yellow at 5 minutes-ish, 302. Normal for me. First crack, 9 minutes at 376, a little early. It's decaf, you know. It's gonna take on heat easily. I mean, early when I compare it to a regular caffeinated coffee, okay? So I don't freak out about this number. Drop, 318, 398. I think I could push this to 400, but I'm looking at the beans in the sight glass and in the trier, and I'm like, okay, that looks good, you know. I've got 3 minutes 30 on the third phase. I'm like, that's good, you know, like a medium. Now, if my aunt ordered this or something, and I know she likes something on the darker end, I could push that a little bit more, you know. And still, I could call it medium. You know, just the prerogative of a craft roaster or a small-time roaster, hobby roaster like myself. Okay, so that's medium. We can push this to 4 minutes. You'll get more roastiness in the cup, however you want to break that flavor note down. Just be more roasty. I like to retain as much as possible as the flavors. This coffee has this really like barbecue sauce element in it, and there's an acidity in that barbecue sauce that I like to taste in here. And if I roast that out, I don't really like it too much, so I like to keep some acidity in the cup in this. But if I'm roasting for somebody who's down for that darker cup, then yeah, we can roast that right out. Okay, back. All right, last one. I have my dark and oily dark request. Let's see what that looks like. A standard dark roast. Ask anyone, I think. They'll tell you 4, 4, 4. Like that. 4 minutes, 4 minutes, 4 minutes on each of the phases. And that's a good standard, right? Now, if you've got this is a natural process coffee. This is Mr. Cotto from where? Guatemala. If you got a wash process coffee, you can really push it, I think, in the middle phase here, or even in the dry. Go to 5 minutes. Go to 5 minutes on the dry. Go to 4 minutes on the middle. And then develop this 4 minute on the last part. And just, control it. Control the heat as you go down. Okay. So dark roasts are hard for me. Okay, you see this squiggly wiggly action going on? Now, my friend asked me about this a lot. He's like, no matter what I do, it just gets all squiggly wiggly over here. And let's talk about a couple of things that could be going on. And I won't cover all of them. I can't know what I don't know. We talked about that in the last video, right? Let's be aware of that. So at first crack, what are we doing? What I do, typically, is that as we approach first crack, you hear your outliers, and then when you hear a rolling first crack, it's popping off. I mark that, so I'll be like, mark it, and that will be my 834 at 386. Okay, that's good. My air will increase to max, 100% full, and then depending on the behavior of this ROR curve, I typically do counter in a couple of seconds or so, bring my heat. If it was like below 1 kPa, I'll bring it back up to 1 kPa or higher than that, maybe 1.5, maybe 2 sometimes. Whatever I need to get ahead of this ROR and just make sure that I'm maintaining a good amount of energy throughout the roast. I don't want to stall it, right? So, we're running out of battery. Okay, let's be quick. So moving along, just paying attention to this and monitoring it, what I need to do. Now, issues that you could have on why this would be an erratic. One, you don't have a double-walled machine, a double-walled drum roaster. When you have double walls like my machine is, you have a little bit more stable thermal retention. It's thermodynamics. Don't ask me, I'm not a scientist. I'm sure it's 6th grade science, but double walls means it's better insulated, right? Like a thermos. Think of a thermos that has double walls, your Stanley thermos. Better heat retention. Okay, so maybe you don't have that type of machine. Maybe also the probes that monitor this, monitor your bean probe and your environmental temperature, maybe they're in locations that are not in the best placement of the machine. We don't know what kind of machine my friend is using. It's not a Mill City roaster, so we can't pinpoint what that is. We also can't pinpoint the size of the probes that he's using. He doesn't know. All right. So it could be a 5 millimeter probe, could be a 3 millimeter probe like mine. We don't know. Okay. So it could be elevation. I remember a subscriber was like, dude, I'm having the hardest time. And I think it's because we live really, 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 really high up in the mountains or something, and that affected how the machine roasted. Another thing is bean quality. Maybe it's not as dense. Maybe it has too much moisture in it. So once it's hitting first crack, maybe it it hasn't been dried or processed in such a way that it releases the right amount of moisture. Maybe there's too much moisture in the green. It's supposed to be like what, 10 to 12, maybe 13% of moisture content in a specialty coffee green. That could be off, right? So wherever you're sourcing your green, and I think my friend grows his own green. So if we're not qualified enough to source, process, sort the green, maybe that could be affecting how it's reacting in the drum. What are some other things that could be an issue? General just heat management, the power of the burners in the machine. How powerful is it? Maybe it's not powerful at all. Maybe when you make an adjustment on your machine, even though it is gas, maybe it's a really small flame. Maybe there's not a lot of power behind that flame. Like I roasted on a machine that had a lot of tiny little burners versus my Mill City roasters got 6 massive burners. Like 20,000 BTUs of power coming through there. So what that just means is that it's very responsive. So maybe there's a latent, there's some delay in the transfer of energy from the burners to the drum to the beans. And when it's documented or reported by the probes, and again, they could be placed in an area that's not the best for them to take measurements, then we see is sort of like possibly an erratic behavior here on the ROR curve. So there's a lot of variables that we don't know about, and it's up to you as the roaster if you really care about that, because honestly, does it matter if it's all erratic? To me, okay, I'm gonna tell you straight up, this is my personal opinion, no. I don't think it matters, because if despite all this stuff that's going on with your graph and your roast software, if you cup it, right, and you can find some way to make your coffee taste good, and it tastes good, and it objectively tastes good, and we score it, and you have other people score it, or they say it tastes good, and this person say it tastes good, that person say it tastes good, right? We talked about good versus bad binary stuff. There's stuff in between too. I'm not discounting that, but hey, generally we can consistently make this coffee taste good despite my erratic ROR. I think you're still good. You're still in the game, okay? But if it's your own personal belief that your graph must look a certain way, and you care more about that than what your coffee tastes like and what your customers are tasting, then okay, then you got some work to do. That's just how you want to do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with that. You got to play your own game. So I don't think it matters. I have a 3mm probe that I upgraded from my 5mm probe because I felt that pressure to speak the same language as my peers. But the cost wasn't that much, so I was like, what's $60 to speak this language of my peers? But would I have been fine without it? Say I couldn't get it, say I didn't have access to it, say I didn't have $60 right now, I think I'd be fine. I still make great coffee, a good coffee. I don't know about great coffee. I still make good coffee that my customers like too, and that I like. I think it would have been fine. So yeah, that's what I've said about that. I hope that helps. I will link all of these in the description, but we're running out of battery now. So we will see you in the next one. Bye.